Thank you so much for that introduction. We're really excited to talk to you today about C-SPAN, what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and how we provide something a little bit unique in this modern media landscape. So, but before I get to that, I'm going to throw it over to my colleague, Heath Niederer, real quick, and he wanted to share something.
I'll make it quick because I want to make sure we get to your questions as well. First, Ronnie, thank you for giving me Mr. Orman in my breakout room. Spectacular. I appreciate it. Secondly, as the Superintendent Thomas said, talking about education, I want to show you some photos, but we pivoted to the virtual space actually last March when everything went down a year ago. It's hard to believe, right? And in September, in earnest, we started these virtual interactions with civics clubs across the country, and they have been so rewarding and so fantastic because obviously you're civically engaged, you care about politics, you're leaders in your community, so you're a great audience for us. But also I think from this presentation, you're going to get, I didn't know that about C-SPAN, or wow, I didn't know they offered that service on that platform to help me stay informed with what's happening in Washington, D.C. But Superintendent Thomas said our recent visit to Palmer High School. Now this isn't Palmer High School. This is Air, I'm going to try to get this, Air Academy High School. Our discussion today is very timely because on Wednesday, we announced our winners for our video documentary competition called Student Cam. So it's for middle and high school students. They have to put together a 5 to 6 minute video, think critically about an issue. We just announced 150 winners throughout the country. We give away $100,000 in prizes, but this was back in 2012. And this is Brendan and Marshall. They at Air Academy High School, they placed, I'm gonna move this, they placed second in our competition. So their video aired on our network and they won about $1,500. This is the C-SPAN bus that's typically in the community, but obviously it's off the road now. Back to Brendan and Marshall. And what's important about this is we have the local support of Comcast, right? And Joel's going to get into that unique relationship, that special relationship, but that's really important to us. Now moving to more recently, so again, this is aboard the C-SPAN bus. Again, anything thanks to Comcast in the background, but Christian and Gabriel won first prize. So they won $3,000 back a couple of years ago. Again, we brought our bus and representatives there. We had a big ceremony for them to recognize them. Local officials came out, media came out. It was fantastic. So I just wanted to show those pictures, and this is kind of what it looks like on the bus. But I just wanted to share those pictures because you mentioned education. That's extremely important to us. And I'm going to hand it back over to my good colleague, Joel Bacon.
Awesome. Yeah. So thanks for that, Heath. Great to be here with you all today. And like it was mentioned, C-SPAN was founded back in 1979. So who remembers back in 1979? Raise your hand if you remember when television was basically once just 3 giant networks and a government-supported channel called PBS. Who remembers that? I don't. I wasn't alive, but I've heard. So basically, C-SPAN, in 1979, our small network, we rolled out this big idea. And I know we had an unusual name, but we did have a big idea at least. We wanted to let you decide all on your own what was important to you. We opened the doors to Washington policymaking, bringing you unfiltered content from Congress and beyond. And in the nearly 42 years, our anniversary is coming up. It'll be 42 years. And the political and media landscape over that time has absolutely changed. But we think that you're going to find that C-SPAN's big idea may be more relevant today than ever. Now, these unprecedented times, we think demand an unconventional approach to political news coverage. And I'll share with you today the ways that C-SPAN, both on television and online, is a powerful media resource that is widely trusted with a wealth of easy to access tools for following the day's events. And all of this is to enable you to be a better informed participant in our democracy. Like was mentioned by Heath, underpinning our nonpartisan coverage of Washington and the nation's politics is the fact that no government money supports us at C-SPAN. We're funded by the cable industry and the satellite industry as a public service to you. Now we're here in DC just to provide something distinct in today's media so that you can make up your own mind. So Although if you will make sure you're muted throughout the Zoom, I will go ahead. We are recording it. You'll be able to catch anything. If I stumble, you'll be able to come back and see that. But I'll go ahead and share my screen and let's get started. So throughout our history, our democracy has faced many serious challenges. But think, have we ever faced so many all at once? Just in the course of the last year, we've experienced the emergence of the worst pandemic in 100 years by far, an extremely volatile economy and job market, widespread social unrest, and some of the most consequential fires and hurricanes that we've had in years. And all of this was during a presidential and congressional election cycle like none other in our history. And now, as we have a new Congress and administration, more than ever, people are looking to their elected leaders in Washington to see how they are going to address all of these issues facing our nation. So we'll show you why C-SPAN should be one of the key networks you can turn to see all of your public officials and how they're responding to these pressing matters in their own words, and to see how their actions and policies are actually affecting you and your community. So if you've ever watched C-SPAN, you'll know that we are different, that it might be an understatement, but we are purposely different. So let's talk about what that means and what that means for you, and how you can use all of our unfiltered resources and coverage to view today's events and actually engage with the news and newsmakers in ways that other media really just doesn't provide. So C-SPAN, at the base, we're not going to attempt to tell you what to think. Unique to television, we're going to simply put you in the rooms where the most important political and policy issues are being discussed and debated. We're going to let you watch all of these events in their entirety so that you can think for yourself and so you can make up your own mind. Now, a bit more about how we are purposely different. We'll look at our business model, our perspective on public affairs, and how our mission just makes our coverage look a lot different from other media outlets. First off, 4 decades is a long time for a cable news channel. In fact, we were here serving the public even before CNN or ESPN launched, and more than a decade before other cable news networks even started. And in that time, we've really never veered from our core public service mission. We are very uncommon in this media business because, as was mentioned, we are nonprofit. We are an independent enterprise. It was the cable and television industry that supported us and launched us back in 1979. And contrary to many people's thinking, no government money. I'll say it again, no government money, but we're actually funded by fees paid through the cable and satellite companies that distribute television into your homes, like Comcast there. Now, this funding model is really important for us because it really lets us be mission driven rather than to be driven by day in, day out TV ratings. So I have mentioned our mission a couple of times. So let's just take a quick view, 20,000 foot view. Those are to those Air Force folks out there, the 20,000 foot view of C-SPAN's mission. So first off, for us, it's the people that we cover that are the focus. C-SPAN provides long form programming. We show you events from start to finish without interruption, without editing, whether that's a 12-hour debate or a 20-minute press briefing. We then show balanced coverage, trying to cover multiple viewpoints, giving you a chance to hear from experts across the political spectrum who provide the perspective and help you better understand the issues. Really, quite simply, we don't think it's about us. C-SPAN itself doesn't provide commentary. It's the lawmakers, the decision makers, and journalists who are creating, influencing, and reporting on public policy that are going to be the ones who provide the perspective. C-SPAN instead tries to stay out of the way and give our viewers direct access to all of these leaders, and we invite viewers to participate in the discussion both on social media platforms and live on television. So if you haven't called in, you actually pick up your phone next time you're watching C-SPAN, call in and ask your questions or let your thoughts be heard. That's vital to our mission. So this is basically our mission, and let's look at how that mission guides us to what you'll actually see on our network. First off, we are most famous for our unparalleled coverage of Congress, with our live gavel-to-gavel coverage of floor proceedings from the U.S. House on C-SPAN, and the US Senate on C-SPAN 2. We also cover hearings where Congress debates all of the challenges facing our country and makes decisions about the issues that affect your life. And that's not just the big blockbuster issues, but it's the day in, day out inner work of our national legislature. We also go deep into the corridors of the Capitol to show you briefings by congressional leaders, both in the House as well as the Senate. And we also show the influencers in Congress, whether that's the Congressional Black Caucus or the House Freedom Caucus, all shown here. Now, our coverage did not change, even on January 6th. We covered the entire joint session of Congress until almost 4 a.m. And in true C-SPAN fashion, we just opened the phone lines to get your reaction on what was occurring at the U.S. Capitol and not our opinions. We continue to cover these hearings as both chambers are looking and hearing testimony from law enforcement and security officials on the things that happened that day. So that's our coverage of Congress. Our coverage of the executive branch, predictably, includes almost every single event by the new president, as well as the vice president. Lots and lots of confirmation hearings for cabinet nominees, and lots of meetings and briefings throughout the administration as they focus on the president's agenda for his first 100 days. So that's Congress, the executive, and now the Supreme Court. They don't let us actually have our cameras in the courtroom itself yet, but we do air audio of major cases, including live coverage of the oral arguments. And we've also covered all of the Supreme Court justices' nomination process and confirmation hearings, and as many of their public appearances as we can get to try to gain some insight on their judicial philosophy. So although our programming does focus mostly on what's happening here in the federal government, we try to provide our viewers a little bit more perspective, and we often cover state officials showing how they are handling these national issues really on the local level. As you can see here, Governor Polis has been on C-SPAN around 500 times discussing issues important to Colorado. And most of those times, of course, were while he was a congressman from the state. Now, our coverage of beyond the elected officials, we cover many events of national importance and international importance, whether that's the Mars rover mission or relevant debates like our weekly coverage of our Prime Minister's Question Time from the British House of Commons. If you haven't watched that, it's really entertaining. It's really interesting to see kind of the difference between ours and their government. And so as you can see with all of this, placing a camera in the room where these discussions and debates are taking place is really kind of the core of C-SPAN's mission. But in order to provide fuller context for these decisions being made by our leaders and to try to get past some of these talking points, we go beyond our coverage of just the events. We try to aim to add context through our call-in programs like the Washington Journal, which is our daily call-in program where decision makers and journalists answer viewer questions and discuss really what's happening in the news that day and that week. And we also show experts as they are debating solutions to public policy issues during forums at a diverse array of think tanks and advocacy organizations. And we also air in-depth discussions with authors. You might not know about this, but our author discussions are really, really fun with our Q&A and book TV programming, like this author discussion with Colonel Wells, who wrote about air warfare right there in Colorado Springs, and also this tour of the press at Colorado College. And then, if you are a history buff, we feature lectures and firsthand accounts of historical events on American History TV every weekend, including this look at the connection that Colorado Springs has to Nikola Tesla, or this event that took place in Morrison, Colorado on the history of the West and the role of Black cowboys. Now, really, there's a lot of discussion today on the role of the news media. And in our society, and you'll often hear the term fake news, right? Now, in the midst of all of this, C-SPAN is still widely recognized and credited by others as factual, neutral, and trusted. If you search online for media bias charts like this one from the media watchdog Ad Fontes, C-SPAN consistently ranks at the top for our production of factual content and really right in the center for neutrality. And that has simply been our journalistic goal for the last 40 plus years by providing a front row seat to all of our viewers of our democracy in action and getting out of the way. For those of you who are familiar with our programming, hopefully this place on this chart comes as no surprise. But if you're less familiar, hopefully this gives you a little bit of a better outside perspective on our role in the media. So if you have questions, I think we have some more in the chat already, but real quick before we get to that, we will show you how you can access all of our great content. First off, we have 3 easy to remember channels that are dedicated to providing live public affairs programming. That's C-SPAN, C-SPAN 2, and C-SPAN 3. You can also find us online as at cspan.org, which is our video-rich website with live access to every day's coverage. And then everything we cover is then available for on-demand viewing afterwards. Our website actually features a free video library with over 266,000 hours of programming that grows every single day. Now, all of these online programs, as you see here, can be watched in their entirety. Or for quick viewing, you can actually jump to different points of interest that take you to the highlights within the entire event. And if you want to make your own clip and you want to share that or save that for later, you can do that right there on every one of those web pages as well. cspan.org also has this thing called the Congressional Chronicle that gives you detailed information about what's happening in the House and the Senate. And this is where you also can find a unique page for every member of Congress with the committees that they sit on, their voting records, bills they've sponsored, and a lot more. For example, here's the page for your nearby member of Congress, Doug Lamburn. He's been on C-SPAN 402 times. And you can watch every single one of those videos, whether that's a recent floor appearance or you can search all of his videos for his views on different issues that might be more important to you. Now, on our website as well, we feature a full page dedicated to the government's response to the coronavirus. It's a great place to stay up to date on the conversations taking place in the administration, in Congress, as well as the state level. And also to get a great kind of understanding of the virus's spread through our site's interactive maps and charts, as you can see on the right there. If you are an educator, I know we have lots of educators on the call today, but all of those educators out there, I want to tell you about C-SPAN Classroom, which is our free service. We have 44,000 members in this service that is free. Like I said, free. We offer it, and it has a wealth of resources to help teach civics as well as social studies in the classroom. Items also include short video clips on a variety of topics and lesson plans, as well as lots of actual opportunities for members like our education conferences and fellowships. Happy to talk more about that in the Q&A if you have questions. If you are on the go like everyone is and you want to stay informed, download C-SPAN Radio app. It's a one-stop shop for a live stream of C-SPAN Radio and audio from our 3 television networks. And if you love podcasts, it's a great place to go for our history and our weekly and daily kind of political recaps that are going on in the government. So if that's not your thing, if you're on social media and that's where you get your news and information, follow us on Twitter for our timely content, engage with us on Facebook for the topics of the day, follow us on Instagram for features and peeks behind the scenes, and you can visit our YouTube page for even more video highlights. And if you also are like me and like to get your news in your inbox, C-SPAN has a variety of great newsletters you can sign up for, including Word for Word, which it just cuts through the daily news clutter and provides you a synopsis of the political happenings. We've got a programming guide with daily schedule information, and we've got 2 weekly newsletters with previews of what's going to be on Book TV and American History TV each and every upcoming weekend. So, as you can see, we've tried to stay true to our mission while expanding to serve our audiences in innovative ways with lots of fresh concepts for digital platforms and devices. And as the C-SPAN team continues now remotely to work together to provide this service, it's really the comments from our viewers, everyday Americans, influencers, and leaders like yourselves that value C-SPAN that strengthens our resolve to remain purposely different.
First of all, I'd like to just say that I really enjoy C-SPAN's coverage. Your unbiased approach to reporting news rather than editorializing is really a breath of fresh air for everybody.
I appreciate C-SPAN so much because I think it's the about the most honest media outlet that we've got right now.
For your view, I've spent 20 years in that building behind you there covering it, and I could not do that job without C-SPAN. It is, for your viewers, as somebody who spends his day watching this stuff, they're all seeing it exactly as we see it inside that building. It's an amazing resource, so God bless C-SPAN.
First, I'd like to thank you, C-SPAN, because I've learned a lot about government and how it works by watching people debate on the floor of the Senate and the House. And I kind of understand my government a little bit better.
First, I'd like to say I've been watching you guys for over 35 years, and I want to thank you so much for being on my cable stations. It's a pleasure when I watch your congressional hearings and watch the whole thing. And then I watch the news and how they report it and see how it differs. So I want to thank you guys very much for being one of the few stations out there that gives us real information.
And having escaped a country that didn't believe in democracy, I escaped a communist country with my parents when I was very young. For me, it was so novel that C-SPAN would provide the transparency and the oversight that is so critical in a democracy. And so I'm really excited to be on the show with you today and so grateful to be a part of this democracy.
All right, so there you have it. We know we're not going to be your only source for public affairs news, but we hope that our time here today has helped show you that we can be an important complement to your other news sources. And we do appreciate your time and hope that you've learned a little bit more about how and where C-SPAN fits into this modern media landscape, just by following the principles of our big idea to let viewers decide all on their own what's important to them, by opening the doors to Washington policymaking for everyone to see, by bringing you unfiltered content from Congress and beyond, and by serving it to you on all of these devices that you go to for news and information. We think, and hopefully you agree with us, that C-SPAN's big idea is more relevant today than maybe ever before. So, Heath, do we have any questions in the chat? Thank you all so much for your attention.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we get to the questions, I want to say thank you. Our first tenet is it the truth, right? And everybody's got agendas. So it's nice to have an organization that just gives it to us straight. It's all we need. I'll make up my own mind, right? Hashtag unfiltered. Appreciate that. It is 1:26, and I know that there may be some people that are ready to get out of here in 4 minutes. So if you got to go ahead. But I'm leaving this thing open because I know y'all have some questions, and I want to make sure we capture them. So I want to start with Dr. Vidler at UCCS. She's had her hand up like before you guys started talking. So I want to give her the first shot at a question.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to have my hand up. So I hereby yield the floor.
Right on. All right, cool. You want to go through the chat that you see and grab some questions, Heath?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We've got actually a lot of great questions, and we'll stay as long as we answer your questions. And if there's additional questions, we're here. Hey, it's Friday. It's almost the weekend. So we have the rest of the afternoon to share with you. So the first question I'm going to throw out there, I'm just going to random order. Got a nice comment. I appreciate the C-SPAN classroom stuff. We used that for my youngest. He's in online school all year. So thank you for that compliment. What's the difference between C-SPAN, C-SPAN 2, and C-SPAN 3? Great question. As Joel said, C-SPAN dedicated to the U.S. House of Representatives, right? So if they're in session, you're going to find that body on C-SPAN. 1979 is when C-SPAN started. We aired the U.S. House of Representatives. 1986, C-SPAN 2 started, and guess what we aired on that? The floor proceedings for the U.S. Senate. So think House C-SPAN, Senate C-SPAN 2. If those bodies are in session, right, we'll never, ever, ever break from them. So C-SPAN 3 allows us to have another outlet to show timely, relevant, those blockbuster hearings that you might be reading about in the newspapers or online. So we have that as C-SPAN 3. Now, C-SPAN 2, every weekend, if you like to read, I heard literacy is very important, as you mentioned. We dedicate 48 hours to nonfiction authors called Book TV. So that's C-SPAN 2. And then on C-SPAN 3, if you're a history buff or if you enjoy history, we dedicate 48 hours to American History TV. And then one thing back to C-SPAN real quick, the C-SPAN, the first network. Every morning we have our flagship call-in program called the Washington Journal. And if you haven't watched it, so it's 7 to 10 my time. So that would be 5 to 8 your time, if I'm doing my math right, my conversion. But it's kind of looking at the day's events, what's happening in Washington, D.C., or what might be happening during that week. We have public policymakers on there. We have elected officials on there. We have journalists who are reporting on this stuff. But it's a great way to stay informed with what's happening. JB, would you add anything else to what I shared?
No, I think that kind of captures, those are the three tranches of the type of stuff that we cover, and everything else we kind of can go and simulcast between the different networks or different things like that. We often do that. One thing I'll mention before I answer the next question, before anyone else hops off, is that in a follow-up email that I'll send, we're going to actually, we want to give back to you all, and we're going to give you a chance to just sign up. You give us your mailing address and we'll send you our Senate book, which is a book that we created as we were doing a documentary of the U.S. Senate in 2018. So it's a really, really nice book, and we've had a lot of great responses from our Rotary members that we've done these talks to. And so since you've given us your time, which is a very valuable asset, we want to make sure that we give you that book as well. So just if you see that in an email, you can sign up for that. The last question that was asked was, what does C-SPAN mean? And other than, you know, our mission, and, you know, we mean, you know, unfiltered. C-SPAN actually stands for the Cable Satellite Public Affairs Network. So cable satellite, that's how we go out. That's also who funds us. The public affairs, that is everything that we cover. And of course, we are a network. And now, you know, we didn't want to add, you know, Cable Satellite Public Affairs Network and website and podcaster. We haven't added those yet, but maybe we'll change our name as new things come on. That's a joke. Sorry, not as good as some of the jokes earlier.
Thank you for that gift. Appreciate your generosity. I have another question here. Do you have editors or personnel who watch for lies and untruthful commentary to deny them access or to tell viewers that the previous opinion was not accurate?
Yeah, so that is a great question, right? So I'll say one thing is we have an editorial team that it kind of goes to one of the other questions that was in there of determining what we're going to be covering. So we are making editorial decisions all of the time for what we have the availability as far as our resources. We can cover this, we can invite this person on, we can't, you know, so those are decisions that we do make. But importantly, we do not see ourselves as the arbiters of truth. And really, this is key to how we function, especially on that morning program that is our call-in program. You, our viewers, our callers, is that constant feedback loop that we are getting. So if someone says something on our network that is not, that someone that you think is false or untrue, you can call in and have your opinion shared as well, like right after that. And we also have, we balance that out with the different guests that we have on. Sometimes, you know, on one day we'll be talking about, you know, the president's agenda, and we'll have a representative that's a Democrat on to talk about that for an hour. And then we'll have a representative that's a Republican on that talks about that for an hour. And so that's kind of, you know, that fact checking in real time is almost an impossible thing to do, especially the way that our network is kind of structured in that way. And plus, if we started commenting and like really inserting ourselves in the discussion all of the time in that way, we don't want to be put in that role of making sure like we tell everyone this is what you believe and this is what you don't. That's where that tagline of make up your own mind really is valuable and right key to everything that we do. Right
on. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for that question though.
What is the education and background of your employees?
Varied. Maybe I would ask Rob about this. What is, he's maybe a little bit of a higher view of everyone, but I know for me, I did a background in political science and communication. I know Heath, he was in finance. We have a lot of people that have a wide array, a diverse array of that experience. So I don't know if we have any of the numbers on that. other than, a lot of people that are really interested in politics and media. And
yeah, the only thing I'll share with that is pretty much everyone has a 4-year degree, college degree. Not everyone, but a majority of vast majority of the folks that work there. So, and as Joel said, I got my degree in finance from a small liberal arts school in Northeast Pennsylvania. Came to work at C-SPAN in the finance department, fell in love with the mission, and have been there ever since for the last 20 years. So it's a great place to work, especially being in Washington, D.C., not being part of the conversation, but just giving folks like yourself access to the process. It's very, very, very rewarding, because all the time, people of all ages, really of all ages, will say, hey, thanks for what you do, because I was watching this hearing and I could watch the whole thing, and then I saw a snippet on the news and it wasn't a fair characterization of that hearing, at least in my eyes. So thanks for allowing me to watch the whole thing and make an informed decision. So
awesome. Next question. There's a specific hearing coming up that I'm interested in watching if it is being televised. How do you determine which congressional hearings will be televised?
Yeah, I'll take that. And Joel, you can, again, if I miss anything, chime in. But Joel sort of touched upon it. We have like 3:30 every day throughout the week. We sit down to see what's on the calendar, both for the president, for Congress, for the Supreme Court, right? Those live oral arguments. So again, going back to our mission of multiple viewpoints, a variety of topics, we're dedicated to the House and Senate, so we have to, schedule around those bodies if they are in session. But yeah, I'll give you. That's why I pulled up my website, the website here. Today there was a hearing on veterans health by subcommittee in the House. We had the Microsoft president and some media experts testifying on Congress about a free and a diverse press, very relevant. We had a hearing on artificial intelligence as well, of course, with President Biden's remarks last night about the vaccine and distribution. We covered the briefing, the White House COVID-19 response team's briefing today to hear. I mean, there were a lot of follow-up questions there. So it just varies. But again, think about not just the blockbuster events, right? Yeah, we're going to cover those, but it's kind of really digging a little bit deeper into other issues and topics that you might not be reading about on the first page of a paper or at the top of a website. So, but it's done by a dedicated team, like I said, Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday, where they look at to see what's going to happen for the week and then the upcoming week as well. Joel, anything else? Because you were actually in that world.
Yeah, I mean, I think you pretty much got it covered. And any way that right on the top of our website, actually, you can go and see what is going to be coming up on all of those hearings. And just as kind of going back to that last thing that we were talking about, as far as being those arbiters, like for instance, if there's a big speech like last night, the network news, they do what they do, but what you would watch that speech that President Biden gave, and after it, they would come on and tell you what part of it to believe, what part of it not to believe, what were the big takeaways, what you should think about it, everything like that. But that's instead of doing that, after we aired the speech, we opened up our phone lines, so anyone who watched it could call in and tell us what they were taking away from it. And so that's the kind of way that we really function in that space. So. Yeah, and as far as the committees and stuff like that, we try to cover as many as we can. And yeah, that's pretty much what we have.
Question from Josh. Could you elaborate? It says, why not show the entire House, Senate during speeches? If you're talking, I assume are you alluding to like camera angles or camera shots? So great question. Thank you for asking it. In 1979, when C-SPAN started, a couple years prior to that, when Brian Lamb, our founder, and he still sits on our board and he still goes into work every day, very involved with C-SPAN. When he had conversations with Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, Brian wanted to show the U.S. House of Representatives, right, the people's business. Speaker O'Neill thought it was a good idea. However, he's like, you will not own nor operate the cameras. So the camera is technically controlled by the Speaker of the House, right, on the House side, and then by the majority leader in the Senate. So they're not our cameras, and they control what you see. The feeds for those networks are public domain, so anyone can use them. But that's our commitment to giving you access to your public officials. So hopefully that answers your question.
All right, awesome. Mike, you want to take yourself off mute and ask your question, sir? Webmaster Mike.
Got it. I am just curious with your unfiltered. We know that you don't do this, but do you think that the other media outlets, by choice, stir up the divisiveness that we all experience and see, and so despise?
Mike, I'm going to pull the old C-SPAN move. It's like a Jedi move. What do you think? Because we will not answer that. I mean, we're C-SPAN, right? We're not gonna say we're better or worse than a network. We are unique, and we share what we do, and hopefully you appreciate it. But what do you think, Mike?
I think they do.
I think so too.
I think it's their mission is to get people engaged. And if you're riled up, you're gonna go to a place that's gonna feed your
narrative
for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I guess my follow-up question, very C-SPAN, is has your viewing habits on where you get news and information, has that changed because of it? Are you watching more C-SPAN?
No, I'm not watching C-SPAN because another question after this would be the length of the content. And I'll bet you do talk about that in your meetings. But I have gone to other news outlets that I don't agree with because I want to hear what they have to say. And when I do that, they're saying the same thing. They're saying the exact opposite, but there's no place really to go to get unbiased. What are the facts about $15 an hour minimum wage? Kind of things.
So I'm gonna. You brought up long form content, right? I mean, that's what we're known for. That's extremely important to our mission, right? So if someone wants to watch the entire reading of the COVID-19 relief bill, right? Like on the Senate chamber, like we covered that so you could see what was in that bill and hear what was in that bill. That's what we're all about. However, we recognize as a network, people are consuming their information and news on different platforms. And it was an opportunity for us to, I'm going to recommend a couple things. Definitely download this free C-SPAN radio app, right? It's has some great podcasts on there. One that's called Washington Today, and it comes out 6:30 our time, so 4:30 your time. And it's a recap of what happened in Washington, D.C. that day, right? And it's not like not a full 2 hours, right, of a hearing. It's a condensed version of maybe a piece of a hearing. It might be 5 minutes, it might be 2 minutes, but always know you can go to cspan.org and watch the entire thing on your own. I also want to recommend if you get your news by email, we have a great email called Word for Word, which I use on a regular basis. Comes out in the evening, and it's a recap with video highlights from what happened in Washington, D.C. To your point, we recognize that not everyone is going to have 2, 3, 4, 5 hours to sit down and watch an entire hearing. Yeah. But if there is a hearing that you enjoy, and Joel touched upon this, or not enjoy, but you want to watch, and maybe enjoy, go to cspan.org, keyword search, right? 266,000 hours and growing every day. A lot of content there. But we have on certain programs points of interest, right? So the president speaks at an event that's 2 hours. His remarks start like 30 minutes in. We might highlight that so you're not sifting through that program. And there's a transcript, keyword search as well, so you can search it. Again, it's not like someone telling you a 30-second recap, but it's our way to evolving to help you better find what you're looking for, because we recognize that you are extremely busy and you might not have all the time to sift through that. And we love hearing from you, like, hey, does this work? Can we do things better? That helps us obviously deliver this content in ways that you're consuming it.
Yeah.
Oh, and social media as well. It's another good one.
Yeah. Thank you.
How is C-SPAN financed?
So
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take
Go ahead,
that one.
JB.
Yeah, so C-SPAN is financed through the cable and satellite companies. So locally there through Comcast. So they're the ones that founded us all the way back in 1979. Our founder Brian Lamb went over and talked to some cable execs and said, "Hey, we should get this thing that is being built out right now, cable. We should put the government on and just show what's going on in the house." And so that's they agreed, and since then we've been almost entirely funded through that through that industry. So that's really how we've been funded and how we're currently funded still.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is, we get this question a lot, our funding, but also how many people still have cable or satellite? Has anyone cut the cord?
Cut it
Anyone?
off.
Well, yep.
Cut
So
it.
that affects our bottom line. So long term, we're like, okay, we need to find additional revenue streams. So one thing that you will see, and then when I put up the website, we do have advertising on our digital platforms, on cspan.org, on some of our podcasts. So that is one way that we're looking at new revenue streams. And also, if any of you have any streaming service, well, like YouTube Live or any like streaming services where it's like your traditional channel lineup, but through a digital service, and you don't have C-SPAN, reach out to them and say, hey, would love to have C-SPAN on here, because we have a dedicated team at C-SPAN that's trying to get C-SPAN on those distribution platforms as well. And a good word from you'd be surprised, goes a long way. So if you don't have C-SPAN on it, make a recommendation or send a friendly email to your provider.
Right on. How was the media bias chart developed?
Yeah, so that media bias chart was that's not a C-SPAN chart or anything like that. That's a third-party organization that put that together. And so we just searched online for media bias charts, and there's a couple that are out there that you can find. That one I think is from a couple of years ago, and it shows we consistently, depends on which one you go to, we still are consistently at the top for that unfiltered kind of factual content, as well as right there in the center for that nonpartisanship, that neutrality. So yeah, so we just did what you can do is search online for that, but we haven't. We're not associated with them.
Yeah,
I'm looking at version 7.0 dated January 2021 right now.
All right. Yeah.
Yes. So Ad Fontes is the creator of that media watchdog organization, and actually I think they're based in Colorado.
Really?
I think Denver. I think. So yep.
All right, fantastic. Hey, C-SPAN, thank you. You've been a part of my life for a long time. So thanks for the work you're doing. Keep up the good work. Everybody, thank you for tuning in today and staying on a little later to get your questions in. Stay warm. Wash your hands and wear your mask till you get your shots. And I love you guys, and I'll see you all next week.